is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Thinking Market. As you may have noticed, the intro music has changed. The previous music was a remix, a song from my friend James. Shout out to James. He's a phenomenal producer and artist. And his artist name is Dead at 18. And when I first heard that name, it really caught me. And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. But I think in a way it is a beautiful artist name, and it's I like to think of it as like stoicism, memento mori. Um so I find it interesting. But the intro song that you heard is actually my song that I made called Flatline. It's on my EP that I recently put out like a couple months ago or something, called Anarchy of Production, which is a Marxist term in that he used to disparage capitalism. But I thought it was a nice term because it's music production. It's just like a production based EP primarily. And it's anarchy. And I like anarchy. So I thought it was a fitting title for an EP or an album. It's not an album though. And the outro song that you will hear later today is, or at the end of this episode, is a song that is also on the EP called You Were Right. And I was very hesitant, I guess, to not only like use my own music on my podcast because for a long time, I felt it's not good, but also because I think my, YouTube material and this material is more academic. And I felt like my music my music had no place in this world of academia. It was and still is very difficult for me to kind of like square this circle of these seemingly two separate, unrelated worlds. But the more I try to live and learn, the music is just more and more a part of me. And I don't think I should conform or compromise or hide myself to a certain thing, such as academia. I remember someone, a professor, a friend, uh, when he found out I was making music, was like, oh, like, I forget exactly what he said, but it was something it was Thaddeus. When I introduced him to Root Club over his Zoom live stream, and Root Club is obviously like a music group. They look like rock stars, Dash and Ben, Lil U. Anyways, Thaddeus was like, "Don't you know this is like not gonna?" I forget even what he said, but there's something to that, and I think a lot of people think that way. That like you should focus on one thing. You should stay in your lane. Like, don't you think this will hurt you? Blah blah blah. And yeah, some of my music I'm not even proud of. A lot of it was just like trying to emotionally cope and mourn with my research, which is fucking suicide. And I just needed a creative outlet to express myself, how I was feeling, to try to make sense, to literally try to cope. But now I'm still making music, and some of it I like more. So I do want to incorporate it into this podcast. And yeah, that's what you heard. That's what you'll hear. It's my podcast. If anything, I think it like continues to open this world that I'm trying to build in my podcast and trying to express myself. I feel so afraid to express myself because of this feeling, this fear of being judged, of being like inadequate, or being like wrong, or being not doing the right thing, being like, I don't know, doing bad things. And I don't even think that's true, as much as I think I'm just super, or have been super afraid of these criticisms, which is just has been so paralyzing for me to like get this far into so many things, like even making music. I was so paralyzed to even start. And I still feel a little bit like nervous and inadequate, but like maybe I'll feel that way for a while. And I felt nervous even doing like presentations or lectures. Now I'm like more comfortable with it and I have some more self-confidence, but like the first 2 times I presented my research, it was at my thesis defense in Spain in front of my professors and like, you know, the conference room, and then at the Mises Institute for the Austrian Economic Research Conference in 2023. And it was on my research, the economics of suicide. So it's like a heavy topic. I haven't fully internalized or comprehended like what it is that I'm working on and have created and written and stuff. But my feelings, literally when I was presenting these things on stage, what was running through my head was don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And it fucking made me want to cry so bad. And then I also felt just this embarrassment and shame if I were to do that. And I don't know, it's just like, I hate that feeling. Even now, I'm like tearing up. And then I feel fucking embarrassed. And so much of this is so fucking stupid. Because why am I afraid? And this is like honestly what has been on my mind that I want a podcast about. Is I had this interaction before I went to Spain to study my master's and write this stuff. But like, I'm studying economics and I'm talking to this older gentleman. And I don't know, he's like close to, he's in his 70s at the time, maybe close to 70 or something. But we're just kind of talking. He's asking me like, this is like a week or two before I go to Spain, let alone the Ron Paul Scholars Conference the weekend before. And he's like asking me about like what I'm going to study, blah, blah, blah. And I'm explaining like, I'm studying Austrian economics. And he asked me the question, why should I listen to you? And it stumped me. And I'm like, shit, he's got a point. Like, why should he listen to me? Obviously, I'm young. I'm like 23 at the time. I don't have a master's at the time. I don't have a PhD. I'm not an economist, let alone have a book or publications or have like a big platform or followers or any of this. But now I'm like, fuck that shit. Like, it shouldn't matter what my age is. Age shouldn't matter in questions and concerns for truth. If I'm right, I'm right. You think for yourself. You validate. You verify if I'm right or wrong. I don't need to explain. I don't need to justify. I don't need to teach someone else anymore. I know I can remain open-minded to my errors and where I go wrong. So please tell me where I'm wrong. Because if you really want to know what I think, if you're really curious for the truth, then I'll fucking tell you. But other than that, fuck you. That's not what I said. And this is just how I'm feeling. I'm not talking like fuck you, but like I'm saying like so many interactions just get like blown over or whatnot. And as I get older, it's just like, that's why you discounted my ideas. I mean, look at like Dave Smith, a comedian. Yet he's crushing it on foreign policy, better than our foreign policy experts, because it's all a fucking sick game. It's not even a joke. These people are making money off the blood and murder of children. So they're fucking doing that, then where are we? I mean, Jeffrey Degner, a student of Professor Guido Holzman, just published his PhD thesis on inflation in the family. Around 1950, the percentage of 30-year-olds who were homeowners and married was 50%. It was 50% of 30-year-olds who had a house and were married. What is that percentage today? Of 30-year-olds that are homeowners and married. 12%. Why? Because of inflation. Because the Federal Reserve and the government is pauperizing people, stealing their wealth. We literally have socialism in money, socialism in part of our income. Part of it is taxed. It's socialized. It goes to the government for redistribution. It gets printed and devalued consistently. This is interventionism. This is what leads step by step to socialism. And America is not immune. America is a country, and countries are susceptible when they have governments to socialism. And I'd prefer not to live in that condition, because when you really study socialism, there's a lot of shortages and there's a lot of surpluses because there's no prices. There's no sometimes money. So there's no market. And so usually there's shortages in the things that matter most, like food, clothing, and housing. That's why you have breadlines. And what is there a surplus of? Poverty and murders, mass executions. Because if you're not paying people, how do you get them to do what you want them to do? Well, you have to force them with threats, followed up by imprisonment and tortures, and then murders. That's why in every socialist country, they murder, on average, 10% of the population. And the thing is like, for all the leftists who are concerned about mental health, why don't you look at monetary policy? Why don't you look at inflation and understand that it's an increase in the money supply? And that only happens because we have a Federal Reserve who has a monopoly on printing money, because we have a government which is the biggest monopolist in society. It's literally a monopolist entity over police, courts, the justice system, defense. But this is the whole fucking propaganda of the state. They want you to think that supporting the military makes you a good, virtuous, honorable citizen. It's all a lie. It's bullshit. A free society would not even want to have any remembrance of war. War is always a fucking tragedy. Yet they promote it everywhere. All these statues, veterans this, veterans that. Look, I have a lecture coming up. We're lecturing on institutions with the Menger Institute. What institution am I going to lecture on? I'm going to lecture on the institution of the military, of militarism, of war. The amount of bribes given to people who join the military is insane. All the discounts, healthcare, home ownership, lower interest, the list goes on. So the state wants war because that's what justifies their existence. As Randolph Bourne said, war is the health of the state. As long as there's wars, it doesn't matter if they're like in the Middle East or if they're viruses. As long as we can militarize society and print money, that perpetuates the welfare warfare state that we currently have. And it makes me fucking sick. And I feel ashamed that I know this. And yeah, I'm speaking now in this podcast, but I'm still feeling like afraid or sad. And I don't want to feel this way because it fucking sucks. And I feel like a bitch. And this is why I'm fucking upset. Because of this doubt. And like compromising and like compartmentalizing myself. Like hiding myself. Like I hide this music aspect. Because of like, I don't think it's scientific. I don't think it's academic. But in some way, I feel like it is connected to all this. Maybe it's just a part of me that helps me express myself. And I'm just trying to like figure it out. But like this whole age thing is stupid because it in a way is like an appeal to authority. Like just because someone's older means they're more right. Or a lot of times, yeah, older people do have more wisdom because they have more life experience. But like someone can be wrong and then be more wrong the older they get because they don't change their ideas or they double down on what is actually wrong. So like just being older shouldn't give anyone's like opinion necessarily more validity. Like always think critically, always question everything. Don't believe anything you hear, but think for yourself. Cuz the most difficult thing to do is to think correctly. That's a line from Mises. I don't want to take credit for that. But it's true. How many things, ask yourself, how many things do we really think correctly about? Like how many times have we really like changed our mind and just been like, shit, yeah, I was wrong about that. Like if you can really admit that to yourself, it's quite a lot. And it's kind of most things in life. And this whole idea that like the Zoomers are like not critical thinkers is one, a myth, but two, it's stupid. And three, like we don't even, well, a lot of us don't buy the propaganda of like Fox News or NBC or CBS or ABC. Because it's just like, it's a show. It's a theatrical show. Like, it's intense. Like, no one speaks like that in real life. They're not real. In like, it's an act. Like, it's a performance with like an air of authority. Because they're the people that will tell you the serious stuff. As Michael Malice pointed this out, that like, the corporate news networks present you with an issue while simultaneously presenting you with the solution to how to think about the issue. So you're both informed and knowledgeable. You're both like aware and informed and knowledgeable. So it's like this ridiculous addictive show that, yeah, if you grew up watching it, I guess you would be like sucked into it. But I mean, like, why the hell would that, negate not even me, but like a young person who just spends some time reading and writing and thinking and lecturing and attending conferences and attending classes, attending lectures and listening to lectures. Like, just listen to everything and then value it for yourself. Determine for yourself what you think is more correct and more sound and more true. Even like the founding fathers, they were all pretty young. Like Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he signed it. The youngest members was like Robert Elridge. He was like 26. There was like two dudes who were like 26 signing the Constitution. And all these fucking boomer cons are like, I'm a constitutionalist, blah, blah, blah. It's like, then don't tell me that a 26-year-old, can't say some shit that you have to like disparage just because they're young. And I'm 27 now, but like, I'm really upset. Well, I have been upset about it. I don't want to be upset about it anymore. But like, I'm trying to express myself. Edward Rutledge, not Robert Eldridge. Same was Edward Rutledge. I don't even know who he is. I don't really care. I didn't sign the Constitution. It shouldn't have any bearing on my life. It should only be bearing for those who signed it, as Lysander Spooner pointed out. The Constitution of no authority. What do you mean it's binding on me? Who are you? Why can't I impose and bind something on you? But that's a separate conversation to be had. Even like chess grandmasters. Do you know the average age for chess grandmasters? It's like 22, 23. UFC champions, it's like 33. So yeah, maybe something like a mixed martial art requires some more physical capabilities. Maybe it does peak around 33, let's say. But then at least there's a correlation with the mental and the physical and the physiological. So like, I know I shouldn't be upset about these things, but yeah, this is part of the learning process, I suppose, and trying to put them into perspective. And also, like, the younger generations have AI, ChatGPT. ChatGPT, my therapist, is phenomenal at putting things into perspective because it is just a tool of consolidating and creatively determining historical analysis. So it helps people see hindsight. That's why they say hindsight is 2020, and that's why ChatGPT is phenomenal at helping people develop some hindsight because it helps you like think about your situations in a way. It gives you perspective. Therapy really has less to do with the therapist and more to do with the person who's seeking therapy because the answers really are within us. I think, and I've gotten to real therapy, but like a great therapist, although I haven't experienced many, just like ask great questions and they get you thinking in a way you weren't really considering before. And I feel like, I mean, this is not like an advertisement for ChatGPT, but it really does pose questions and helps you put things into perspective, multiple perspectives. And yeah, there's some confirmation bias perhaps, but at least it's not like, I've received a lot more great advice than neutral or negative advice from ChatGPT. Yeah. This has just been on my mind and I just wanted to get it out. And honestly, like yesterday I lectured on entrepreneurship, the role of capital, the profit and loss mechanism, and the emergence of prices, and then also into like socialism and stuff. And it's going good. I feel like I can feel myself getting better at professing and just trusting my intuition more, knowing that I have things to say and just letting it flow rather than trying to rely on, books and what other people said, thinking that like what other people said is the end all be all. But I have things to say, and I'm like realizing that and learning that like, the more I learn, the better I get at lecturing and whatnot. Like, the more things I'll have to say, and I want them to be like original. Like, some of my favorite thinkers, like, I wish they had a monologue podcast. For example, like Curtis Yarvin, he'll go on to shows and get interviewed, and like, I just want to listen to that dude talk because I'm so curious about how he thinks and like what he's thinking, and I like how he explains things. I mean, he's also a poet, so it's like I see the art and I appreciate the way he artistically describes his analyses of history. And I don't know, I feel like, to the extent that I see how I limit myself to the extent that I'm an artist. I don't like internalize these things yet, but I will. I will. That's the development, the internalization. Um, as an artist, I want to express myself, and this podcast, really helps me think things, speak things a professor professes. They're helping my lectures, and I hope my lectures are helping me podcast. And, not every podcast or lecture is perfect, but really that's not what's important. I think just like cultivating this creative outlet and and not even making it better as the goal, but just trying to really express how I feel and what I'm thinking about. I think will be the best for me, because then I think it will be better, like podcast. And this applies for my music too. um I want to I was so insecure about being bad at music that I just like felt like I just had to learn about music and go based on what I learned, at the cost, at the expense of, and compromising, instead of making music based on how I really felt. And so more of like the vocal songs I made, which were, I don't recommend because they're just like dark, and it was a morning thing for me. Like, it was emo music. That's what I liked and stuff. But that was definitely more, in some ways, expressive than some of like the production beats and music that I made. But I'm just like trying to learn now, like, fuck all that. Like, there is originality and uniqueness within me that I do believe I can continue to bring out of me and cultivate and create. And I do think it's infinite. And I do think it's this burning action and movement for truth and freedom. And like, I think of guys like Da Vinci and the Renaissance dudes who were artists, architects, intellects, academics, studying anatomy. The fact that Da Vinci studied anatomy not only as like an interest, but to help him improve his art is remarkable. On top of that, he was an architect and a thinker. And it's like, I don't believe in this idea of like the person who tries to catch two fish catches none. Like, therefore you should focus on catching one fish. No. It's like, you learn how to catch fish, and so then you catch multiple. And you learn how to learn, so you can learn to do anything. That's the power of the mind. The mind is infinite. You really can go deep in creativity. The creative solutions apply to everything. That's why economics is an art. The way Professor Dawn lectures, the way I want to lecture, and I try to lecture, is an art. It's like a performance. As much as a comedian is an artist, a professor is an artist, or ideally is an artist. There's some mediocre professors out there, and that shit's not art. But the way we approach it, even like, podcasting is similar. Like a good podcast, like, it keeps you listening. It keeps you engaged. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but fuck it. Everything's an art. Everything requires creativity and imagination. That's how you really find like your own creative solutions to things. That's how I want to live. That's how I really want to try to live and live my life, and just fuck it. Like, why am I so insecure about this like world, thinking that like, I need to have everyone's approval in order to live my life, or I just like have to be accepted wherever I go. I don't know. Like, it is so self paralyzing and self compromising, and like, I don't even think I realize like, you know, like for example, Occidental College, very left, very liberal, and yet I still wanted to be accepted. Probably because I was dumb and am dumb in some sense. But now, like, at least I can recognize that and try to improve and correct what where I have gone wrong, where I have been dumb, which is fine. It's a part of life. 20-year-olds on average, still have their prefrontal cortex to develop and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know. Just trying to voice all these frustrations. I think it's just okay. Like, I'm no purely dedicated scholar, and maybe that's not what I'm meant to be. Maybe that's not what I should want to be. I thought that was like the mold to fit in order to get what like I wanted, but like, I'm already a scholar. Like, I'm in a PhD program. I have a thesis in development. I profess. I have a publication, working on another one. Now I'm podcasting, and like, I don't think this world needs another fucking academic. Like, I think the world needs more thinkers, but like real ones, like people who aren't afraid to be real, not just pompous and arrogant in their prestige. Like, fuck that. As I eventually become pompous and arrogant. Just kidding. But we'll see where life goes. I do want to keep making music. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna make. I like the future bass production. I also like SoundCloud stuff. So, regardless, I think I should just like keep doing this podcast and writing. Yeah, I just got to keep moving, doing these things. And I hope you guys really like this. So with that, I will introduce this song, I suppose. That will be like the outro. and it's called You Were Right, and it's like the second half of the second drop, and I don't know, I just think it's nice. It's like a future bass song, so to me that's music that's like really a pinnacle of electronic music, because it can incorporate orchestral, organic elements like strings, pianos, violins, cellos, with electronic synths and wavetables and crazy glitch and stutters and basses and lasers and phasers and flangers and all this crazy stuff, and then like drums, and like then you can throw vocals on it and mix them like crazy. It's such a pinnacle of music in a way, because you can have all elements of music. But anyways, yeah, I guess that doesn't really matter, but let's just I don't know, let's just stay connected and keep thinking and learning to free ourselves even more from all this fucking fear. Much love. Peace.